Hi everyone, welcome to Zara's studio. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use my Mermaid paint kit. Each kit comes with a stencil, a pre-portioned palette of acrylic paint, as well as a set of various different sizes of brushes. Each brush is a different color, so I will teach you what brush to use with each step. We're going to begin with taking our big blue brush and using it to apply clean water directly to our canvas. You can always do this step with a spray bottle as well, but this step helps to activate the primer on the canvas, and it also helps so that your acrylic paint goes on smoother. It's not a necessary step, but it's one that I like to do just to increase the spreadability of the acrylic paint on your canvas. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up our paint palette. So these cups can be a little tricky. One thing that I found while using these is to squeeze the bottom of the paint cup. So you're just going to squeeze the bottom and then pull the lid from the top. Now I'm going to be using all of these paints within a short time period. So I'm going to open up all of these. If you are going to take breaks in between your steps, then you can go ahead and just close whatever paints you're not going to use. So I'm starting with my big blue brush, and I'm going to take the dark blue that I have at the far end of the palette and apply it directly onto the canvas. I'm starting in the corners and I'm using long strokes. I don't want to forget to get the sides of my canvas, and I'm just taking those strokes all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. I'm applying these strokes diagonally from our center. So I'm pulling the brush outward and I'm using our middle as our base. We're making a widening V shape, so you're going to be filling in the other corner with this color as well. As you get to the middle of the canvas, you're going to want to straighten out that line. So instead of going diagonally, you're going to go straight to the top of the canvas and then widen into that V shape closer to the sides. Now, if you look at our example, we do have some brighter blues peeking out of that streak of light. So we're going to go in with our lighter blue now. This one is going to be right next to your darker blue. It's kind of like a baby blue color. We're just going to apply that in the same way that we applied the darker blue, but focusing more on that middle. So I'm taking that light blue and I'm really just filling in the rest of our middle with this color. You can also use that lighter blue that I have on your palette to add different colors of blue and highlights. Another good color for that is adding white. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the white in my painting just to show you what it looks like. I like to add it in like a streaky motion where I'm using my brush to blend the colors that are already on the canvas. You can also use a little bit of water to do this. So I'm just going to take a little bit of water on my brush, not dripping, just damp. And I am going to go in between those colors to help with the blending process. So as you add those different colors, as you add that water to the acrylic, it just helps to spread it out a little bit more. And acrylic is a water-based paint, so it thins it out to the point where you're adding color at the same time and it just seamlessly blends together. Now, keep in mind, these don't have to be perfectly blended colors. I like to keep mine a little bit streaky just because it gives more of an ocean underwater vibe. Um, it's really up to you how you blend these on your canvas. I just like to blend just slightly so that it looks cohesive, and you want your edges to really blend together. As you can see here, I'm just taking a wet brush and I'm really using that to thin out the paint that's already on my canvas and lengthen the amount instead of layering more paint on top of it. That's going to help with the drying process. If your canvas has really thick paint on it, it's going to take longer for it to dry. So I'm pulling towards that center with my stroke still. I'm going to take a little bit of white and just make some more streaky looking light fractions coming from above the water. Blending these strokes. We really don't want these to be solid white. We want them to blend in with the background of our painting. Now, once we fill in that canvas, we're going to go ahead and wash our brush. When you're washing your brush, I want you to go all the way down to the bottom of the cup. Really scrape the bottom of that to get the excess paint off of it. Now it's time for the fun part. We're going to take a little cup, add a little bit of water to it, and you can use any color that you want for your splatter paint. I like to use white or light blue just because it gives that illusion of bubbles in the water. And I'm really just flicking this onto my canvas. You can either use your pointy red brush or your pointy black brush for this step. I like to use the pointy red brush just because it has more surface area. Now we're going to make some bigger bubbles. So I did provide a boba straw in with your kit. All you have to do is dip your straw into wet paint and then stamp it directly onto your canvas. Now you can also do actual bubbles with this step if you'd like. One really fun technique that I have is to mix a little bit of that acrylic paint with dish soap and water, and it really does apply a little bubble directly to the canvas. Now that we've got our bubbles, it's time to make our fish. I'm going to take my pointy red brush for this step, but you can also use your pointy black brush if you'd like to make smaller fish. I'm going to start by laying the bristles of my brush on my canvas and just making a stamp for the body of my fish. Then I'm going to do that 2 times closer to the back end of my fish in a V shape. We're going to repeat these steps over and over until we have a good amount of fish on our canvas. I'm starting with my light blue for this step, and I'm applying my fish to the areas where I have darker blue in my background. Now I'm angling my fish so that they follow a circular path, kind of like a school of fish swimming around you. We're going to have our mermaids in the middle, so I want our fish to kind of swim around our mermaids. So I started with my light blue. I'm going to start going in with my darker blue now, and I'm applying this to the areas where there are lighter highlights in my background. This just helps to really accentuate that there are fish of all different shapes and colors and sizes, and it also adds some depth to our painting. You can apply these fish anywhere on your canvas that you want. You have complete creative freedom for your own painting, so have some fun with it. I'm keeping that middle area of our canvas blank and just making our fish go around that area because that's where our mermaid is going to go. I want that area to be open for any mermaid that's going to be swimming through it. I'm also going in with some red fish now. Now you can do whatever color fish that you want. You do have all of the primary colors on your paint palette, so feel free to mix any that you don't currently have. You can use red and yellow to make orange. You can use white and red to make more of a pinker color. Now you really don't want to push too hard on the bristles of your brush because that can start to warp them. If they are starting to get a little bit more flayed, you can always twirl your brush directly on a palette or a flat surface, and that will help to keep its point. And I am adding all different colors of the rainbow to my fish. All different shapes and sizes. Each one is just a little different and nowhere near perfect. Now it's time to add our seafloor. I'm going to take my square purple brush and I'm going to take the black color that is at the very opposite end of our dark blue. And I'm going to apply this directly to the corners, the bottom corners of our canvas. As I'm applying this, I'm shaking my brush just slightly to give it the texture and look of a rock. And then I'm just filling in the rest of the area around those rocks. We're making our seafloor thinner towards the middle and thicker at the bottom edges. That makes it look like it's stretching away from us instead of sitting flat, and it gives a good depth. Don't forget to get the sides of your canvas, just so that when you hang it on the wall, it looks nice, cohesive, and wrapped. Now it's time for our stencils. What we're going to do for our stencil is we're holding it directly flat with our canvas. And we're going to take our purple brush and paint directly over it. Now we want to be very careful not to get any paint underneath our stencil because then it'll look a little blotchy. So we're filling in the surface area as best as we can without going underneath the stencil and instead painting over it. I'm using black for this step just because it gives the illusion of a silhouette and because it's the most striking against that blue. You can use any color that you want for this step, but I prefer the black. Once you're done filling in the surface area of your stencil, you can then peel the stencil away from the canvas. Very slowly, very carefully, and then you're left with this beautiful mermaid silhouette. Now before you go of putting a whole bunch of mermaids all over the place, keep in mind that there is going to be a little bit of wet paint on the other edges of your stencil. So make sure that you either wipe them off or let it dry before you move on to the next step of adding more of those silhouettes. I'm just using my pointy black brush here, and I'm cleaning up the edges of my silhouettes. It did go on fairly cleanly, but I'm just adding some more hair to the mermaids and straightening some of those lines. Now that my stencil has dried a bit, I feel confident going in and adding my turtle. So I'm adding my turtle closer to the top of my canvas. And then very carefully peeling the stencil off. I'm doing the same with my dolphin silhouette, and I'm just using the bottom of its tail to peek through the top of my canvas. Now I'm taking my pointy black brush and I'm going to add some seaweed to my seafloor. I'm just making some wiggly lines and clusters on those rock formations on the bottom. Some of those leaves are longer, some of them are shorter, but they all have a little mind of their own. For my last step, I'm going to go ahead and sign my painting. And with that, I want to thank you for joining me today to sit down, create, and make something beautiful together. I do have other paint kits available on my website, and you can follow my YouTube channel, Zara Studio, for more tips and tricks, as well as more tutorials. Thank you for watching!